Welcome to the debate. Today, we're focusing on a very specific and I think very modern figure, the technology leader who has really weaponized their own massive celebrity to engage directly in governance, political funding, and these just colossal public infrastructure projects.
In that dynamic, it creates a core conflict. So, our central question today is this. Does the constant, highly visible celebrity persona, with all the political maneuvering, the public outbursts, the personal spats, does it ultimately aid or does it hinder this individual's substantive, long-term influence on global policy and, the success of these major projects?
And I'm going to maintain that this high-profile status isn't a distraction. I think it is an essential and, frankly, a highly effective catalyst. It's really the only engine capable of generating the kind of momentum, capital, and regulatory attention you need for projects on a multi-trillion-dollar, truly revolutionary scale. We're talking about things like multi-planetary colonization or even fundamental human augmentation.
And I'll be arguing the contrary position, that this celebrity status is actually a profound constraint. I think its inherent volatility, the political polarization that comes with it, and this prioritizing of performance over stable substance, it actively undermines credibility, it alienates key governmental partners, and at the end of the day, it impedes the successful execution of technology that requires stable collaborative effort.
Well, to begin, I think we have to consider the sheer scale of the vision here. I mean, when your goal is sending 1 million people to Mars on 1,000 starships, or you're even discussing a concept as sweeping as a $20 trillion transatlantic tunnel, you require a level of public visibility and capital generation that, well, traditional CEOs just can't achieve. Only a celebrated media omnipresent figure can command that kind of global capital. The fame itself, it acts as a leverage point, forcing these radical ideas onto the global agenda. And furthermore, this political engagement, it's highly strategic. We see a $300 million donation to elect a former president, then, a dramatic, publicized departure from Washington in a, quote, rage. But despite that volatility, the individual still finds access at the highest levels, like that private White House dinner for the Saudi crown prince. This shows that the core influence machine transcends any temporary personal blowups. This celebrity status ensures that technological goals, advancements like a 40 times performance boost from the new AI5 chip or the energy density leap of the 4680 battery cell, they get maximum visibility. That attracts the talent and investment you need, even when the rest of the industry is skeptical.
Okay, I see why you think that, but let me offer a different perspective, focusing on the immediate operational damage this celebrity culture can inflict. When the leader takes time away from these multi-trillion-dollar goals to publicly call a rival a copycat or gets into a petty spat with a celebrity like Billie Eilish, calling her not the sharpest tool in the shed, the immediate result is that any serious technological discourse about, say, BCI or EV scaling is just diluted into trivial celebrity drama. That isn't strategic amplification, it's a distraction. It shifts the focus away from the substance. More critically, this volatility has real, tangible, detrimental consequences. The material shows that mixing business with high-stakes, polarizing politics leads to concrete business failures. The Boring Company, TBC, which is supposed to be delivering transportation solutions, is reportedly floundering. Why? Precisely because the CEO's intense political turn to the hard right makes him completely unpopular with the local city politicians who are the company's essential customers. That is a structural failure. And what's more, these big projects suffer credibility gaps created by the persona. You have industry experts who are deeply doubtful about relying on a camera-only approach for autonomous driving, and then you have the initial very significant ethical failure of not registering the Neuralink clinical trial in the required public database. That's a basic step for patient protection.
Okay, let's hone in on that political instability you mentioned, especially with the local contracts. I agree the political maneuvering looks volatile on the surface, leaving Washington in a rage, or that abandoned attempt to start the America Party. But I really challenge the idea that this inconsistency translates into a fundamental limitation on stable, long-term influence. In fact, it might prove the exact opposite.
No, I think it absolutely is a liability. It limits governance influence because it creates a governance scale mismatch. I mean, throwing money at a national election and then having a dramatic blow-up demonstrates a personal temperament that overrides any strategic, measured approach to policy. If TBC can't secure contracts because local politicians find the owner personally distasteful, and that's due directly to his celebrity political turn, that isn't powerful influence. That's self-sabotage that affects core infrastructure goals. Influence that only works in DC private dinners, but not at City Hall, is fundamentally constrained in its practical use.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. The ability of this individual to return to a high-level private dinner for the Saudi crown prince, despite those prior blow-ups, that proves the influence machine transcends temporary friction. The core relationship and access remain intact at the highest tiers. Even former President Trump minimized the departure as just a stupid moment in his life. Very stupid. This shows that the ability to access and influence the highest levels of power persists, regardless of the personal drama. The celebrity gives him a level of immunity to consequence that other executives just don't have. He can storm out and then come back the next year when he needs that access again.
Access, yes, but not stable, reliable governance influence. You've only proven that influence works at the highest tier, with the global elite and capital markets. You still haven't solved the core problem. Infrastructure success depends on long-term, reliable political partnerships at the local level. If the company is locked out of municipal contracts because the CEO prioritizes performative polarization, which is amplified by his fame, over just maintaining working relationships, then the celebrity is actively undermining the intended technological rollout. That inconsistency means the fundamental goals, like solving traffic congestion, are being delayed.
The national attention, however, is the mechanism for acceleration. A quiet CEO lobbying for a small contract gets no traction. This leader, however, forces regulators and engineers nationally to grapple with the stated problem. You can't have 3D buildings yet expect 2D traffic systems to work. The celebrity amplifies the signal. It accelerates the national conversation and market demand for new solutions, even if a few local contracts get sacrificed or delayed. That's a strategic trade-off for revolutionary pace.
I just don't agree that that sacrifice is strategic when it affects core delivery. If the visionary's personal popularity is the choke point for their own business, that's a severe limitation on any genuine widespread influence.
All right, let's move to the intersection of public grandiosity and technological reality, because the vision is what draws the resources in the first place.
Right, and the problem with the vision is that the celebrity persona allows for claims that just do not hold up to technical scrutiny. It creates a profound credibility gap. We have critics calling the Mars colonization plan a dangerous delusion. We have former employees who are dismissing TBC as a hack because its 14-foot diameter tunnels can't support true mass transportation volume, which completely defeats the purpose of solving urban congestion. The grandiosity masks these technical limitations and constantly shifting goalposts.
But I think those grandiose visions are a requirement to achieving necessary leaps in physics and engineering. Asserting that Mars will be self-governing with no Earth-based sovereignty, or claiming TBC can dig tunnels for 1,000 times less money, these aren't meant to be read as quarterly projections. They are necessary to compel the massive capital and talent pool required to push these boundaries. Without the celebrity-driven hype, the 4680 battery cell, a foundational shift in energy storage, would never have materialized at this pace. The vision generates the demand signal for impossible engineering.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning. The celebrity status simultaneously reduces the necessary rigor applied to the claims. The persona encourages excitement rather than rigorous due diligence. And that's why we see things like the scaling back of Tesla's magnificent 2030 goal of manufacturing 20 million EVs annually. The constant cycle of massive claims followed by, inevitable retrenchment diminishes long-term faith in the execution. So while you achieve undeniable wins, like the 4680 cell, the associated hype makes other serious projects suffer from chronic credibility deficits, like the industry's skepticism over the camera-only autonomous driving approach.
But that excitement is the currency. It funds the massive R&D necessary for these advancements, whether it's the 4680 battery or the miniaturized BCI devices. That constant, high-level visibility keeps the entire technical ecosystem functioning at a velocity that traditional, measured engineering firms simply cannot sustain. The massive attention keeps the pressure on, ensuring the quiet, fundamental engineering work gets funded and accelerated.
Well, we need to discuss the ethical cost of this high-octane visibility. It seems to me the celebrity status breeds a kind of disregard for established ethical and regulatory frameworks, which is especially concerning when you're dealing with humanity-altering technologies. Take Neuralink. The initial failure to register its first clinical trial in the required public database is not a minor slip-up. It's a violation of fundamental ethical guidelines designed to ensure transparency in human testing.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that scrutiny follows visibility? And often that scrutiny is accelerated because of the fame. The sheer attention this personality draws means the inevitable ethical challenges of bidirectional BCI, which raises massive flags about privacy and identity, are being forced in a public and regulatory view much faster than they ever would under a typical corporate structure. And Neuralink ultimately did file the necessary paperwork. The technology, the successful implantation allowing a paralyzed patient to control a cursor using their thoughts, is proof of concept. It's working toward the goal of helping the disabled, and yes, unlocking human potential. The attention generated by the celebrity ensures these discussions are accelerated, even if some administrative stumbles happen along the way.
The problem is the message sent by that initial failure. The celebrity acts as an implicit indemnity against accountability. It suggests that foundational ethical steps can be skipped in the pursuit of unlocking human potential. That approach undermines the very public trust required for mass adoption of such sensitive technology. Stability and ethical adherence are non-negotiable for governmental partners. The high drama of non-compliance is a liability.
And I would suggest the high drama is the price of admission for accelerating these generational shifts in technology. The evidence shows this technology leader is engaged in a complex performance art where the political donations, the private dinners, the public spats, the grandiose claims, they all serve one core function: maintaining the high-octane, high-risk environment required to pursue multiplanetary escapes and fundamental human augmentation. The celebrity persona is a demanding, unpredictable, but ultimately, I believe, an effective instrument of deep societal and governmental influence. The vision is so large, it requires the amplifier of fame to gain traction.
Conversely, I think the material demonstrates that this unique combination of celebrity and governance creates critical vulnerabilities. When the success of the Boring Company is jeopardized by personal unpopularity among city leaders, and when fundamental ethical standards like clinical trial registration are initially bypassed, it proves that the celebrity status is often a source of self-inflicted resistance. It is a liability that distracts from and sometimes actively prevents the achievement of the promised technological leaps. It prioritizes personal spectacle over substantive, collaborative execution.
What we are watching, I think, is the emergence of an unprecedented mechanism of power, one where immense capital, direct political involvement, and unfiltered celebrity visibility all intersect to create a new form of corporate governance influence.
And that combination demands continuous critical evaluation, because the line between genuine, transformative influence and, well, performance-driven chaos is constantly being redrawn. There is always more to explore in this new intersection of fame and power.